research, insights, and
hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next 30 minutes, US and the UK carry out a third round of 35 strikes against the Yemeni Houthis. UNSC meeting called on Monday by Russia to discuss the Red Sea issue. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays foundation stones for projects worth $1.3 billion, including a pilgrimage corridor for the famed Kamakhya temple. Says his government has brought development and heritage together. Forest fires in Central Chile claim at least 51 lives. Authorities say the toll is likely to climb further as the battle rages on to douse the flames threatening urban areas. And Team India in their third innings set a daunting target of 399 runs on day 3 of the second test at Visakhapatnam. The English visitors get to 67 for the loss of 1 wicket at stumps in their chase. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated and laid the foundation stones of multiple projects in the eastern state of Assam worth more than $1.3 billion. The projects include foundation stone for Ma Kamakhya access corridor to provide world-class amenities to pilgrims visiting Kamakhya temple. Prime Minister Modi also laid the foundation stone of international standard sports stadium in Chandrapur and Guwahati Medical College and Hospital. Foundation stone of multiple road upgradation projects were also laid. These projects will boost the overall economic development of the region.
हमारे तीर्थ, हमारे मंदिर, हमारी आस्था के स्थान ये सिर्फ दर्शन करने की ही स्थली है ऐसा नहीं है। ये हजारों वर्षों की हमारी सभ्यता की यात्रा की अमिट निशानियां हैं। दुर्भाग्य से आजादी के बाद जिन्होंने लंबे समय तक देश में सरकारें चलाई वो भी आस्था के इन पवित्र स्थानों का महत्व समझ नहीं पाए। मुझे संतोष है कि बीते 10 वर्षों में अब भारत में स्थितियां बदल गई है। भाजपा की डबल इंजन सरकार ने विकास और विरासत को अपनी नीति का हिस्सा बनाया है।
Earlier, Prime Minister Modi held a roadshow in Guwahati. Thousands of people gathered to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Modi. People showered flower petals to welcome the Prime Minister. Responding to a distress call quickly, Indian Coast Guard ship saved a precious life in the dark hours. In a swift operation conducted in the night of the 3rd of February, ship C-439 saved the life of a man who had fallen into the sea of Mumbai from a private yacht. Indian Coast Guard found a person hanging to the anchor of a ship. The rescue operation lasted 3 hours. And speaking on the excellent rescue effort of the Indian Coast Guard in the late hours of the 3rd of February, India's Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture, Meenakshi Lekhi, commended the efforts of the Indian Coast Guard. She also talked about how India is emerging as a global responsible power on the sea front to help other nations.
किसी भी देश को कोई भी गैर कानूनी लोगों की वजह से तकलीफ ना हो तो भारत एक ग्लोबल रिस्पांसिबल पावर के रूप में काम कर रहा है और इस क्षेत्र को ऐसी तमाम अव्यवस्थाओं से बचाने का हमारा प्रयास है। मैं भारतीय नेवी को भी आभार प्रकट करना चाहती हूँ।
The Indian government has announced the inclusion of Asha and Anganwadi workers as well as helpers within the Ayushman Bharat scheme. In other words, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. This means that the ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers and their families will now also be able to benefit from free treatment and healthcare related services. Here's a special report.
The hope of connecting every household in every village to health facilities, as well as the health of Anganwadi workers and their families, will now be the responsibility of the government. In the interim budget, the Modi government announced a big gift to these Hope and Anganwadi workers. Apart from making others Ayushman cards, these workers will now have their own Ayushman card. This announcement has brought waves of happiness among Hope and Anganwadi workers and helpers throughout the country.
We are very grateful to Prime Minister Modi for providing us with free treatment under the Ayushman Bharat scheme.
I thank Prime Minister Modi for providing us with free insurance up to 5 lakhs under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. All the ASHA workers are very happy about this.
Modi ji's Ayushman card plan has been very good for our Anganwadi workers and helpers. It is very good for our poor families, especially for the Anganwadi sisters, as it will enable them to get treatment in good hospitals for diseases.
So far, we were traveling to villages and providing convenience to others. But now, all ASHA workers been provided Ayushman cards by our Prime Minister. We are thankful to him.
Within this announcement, more than 10 million ASHA workers and more than 25 million Anganwadi workers and helpers have now come under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. These people will now be able to take advantage of the free treatment and medical facilities. On this, the Secretary of the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Indevar Pandey, said that including ASHA and Anganwadi workers in the Ayushman Bharat scheme will increase their morale and that this will benefit more than 125 million people.
You will see that there are 25 lakh Anganwadi workers and most of them mostly live in villages with joint families. So if we consider a family size of 6, then nearly 1.5 crore people will benefit from this. It will directly benefit them and provide them with the insurance which is beneficial.
Poor people are no longer deprived of treatment due to lack of money. For this, PM Modi started the world's largest health insurance scheme, the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, also known as the Prime Minister's Jan Arogya Yojana, in 2018. Under this, more than 50 million poor people are provided free treatment of up to 5 lakh rupees every year. It has also been ensured that transgender people are guaranteed free treatment under the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Under the Prime Minister's Jan Arogya Yojana, more than 300 million Ayushman cards have been issued so far, and more than 67 million people have received free treatment. This has resulted in saving 1 lakh crore rupees for poor families. About 2,000 health packages are included in the scheme, with 27 different special packages. So far, more than 27,000 private and government hospitals have been tied up with the scheme. In total, 48% of the beneficiaries are women. Speaking of diseases, the disease with the most benefit is kidney disease, followed by hemodialysis, treatment for cataracts, women's disease, heart disease, cancer, orthopedic disease, and bone-related treatments. The biggest benefit of the scheme is its portability, meaning that if your card is made in one state, you can also get treatment in panel hospitals in another state. Bureau Report, DT India.
Now, in the interim budget presented in the Indian Parliament, all the sectors have been taken care of with a focus on women, youth, poor and farmers. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that with this budget, India will pave the way for a golden era of research, innovation and entrepreneurship led by talented youth power. Here's a report.
In these 10 years,
The budget allocation to Ministry of Education for the financial year 2024-25 is more than 734 million, which is the highest ever for the Department of School Education and Literacy. There has been an overall increase of 120 million in funds allocated to this department. While presenting the interim budget, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted the government's unwavering commitment to empowering the youth, notably the Amrit PD, which is the youth of the nation.
Empowering the Amrit PD, the Yuva. Our prosperity depends on adequately equipping and empowering the youth. The National Education Policy 2020 is ushering the transformational reforms. PM Schools for Rising India, PM Shri, are delivering quality teaching and nurturing holistic and well-rounded individuals.
The PM Shri initiative was notably mentioned as it is ensuring the delivery of high-quality education, while the Skill India mission has successfully trained more than 10 million youth, upskilled and reskilled more than 5 million individuals, and established 3,000 new industrial training institutes. Biggest announcement of this budget is the Jai Anusandhan scheme, for which 1,000 billion has been announced as a corpus fund to promote research in academics. National Mission in Education through ICT targets to empower students digitally with 800 million increment in budget. Multidisciplinary education and research improvement in technical education got a 100% increase in budget for this year. Establishment of 3 centers of excellence in artificial intelligence was a big announcement with an allocation of 2,550 million for this year's budget. With this budget, India will pave the way for a golden era of research, innovation and entrepreneurship led by India's talented youth power. Kriti Vadhera for DD India.
Fiji's Deputy Prime Minister Biman Prasad is on a week-long visit to India starting Sunday. Prasad also serves as the Minister of Finance, Strategic Planning, National Development and Statistics for his country. He is also the first foreign leader to visit Ayodhya after the Pran Pratishtha ceremony that took place on the 22nd of last month. His official engagements will commence from Monday, a day after his arrival in the national capital. Biman Prasad had previously visited India in February 2023 on his first official trip to the country. A Pakistani inter-services intelligence spy was arrested from the northern Indian city of Meerut in Uttar Pradesh on Sunday. The ISI agent, named Satyendra Siwal, was posted at the Indian embassy in Moscow since 2021. He was working as an India-based security assistant. Uttar Pradesh's anti-terrorism squad received a tip-off from sources, following which an interrogation with Siwal was carried out. Siwal confessed to spying and was arrested in Meerut. During the interrogation, Siwal revealed that he extracted critical information about the Indian Army. He has also been accused of passing on crucial and confidential information about the Indian Embassy, the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of External Affairs to ISI handlers. India's External Affairs Ministry has said that they are aware of the arrest and they are working with the investigative authorities in the matter. And still to come up on DD India Live, third US and UK target, third attack against US and UK target Yemeni Houthis again for attacking ships in the Red Sea. United Nations Security Council set to meet on Monday at Russia's bidding to discuss the Red Sea attacks and counterattacks. And US President Joe Biden aces the South Carolina Democratic primary with flying colors.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Well, Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I am Gautam Roy. The US and the United Kingdom have struck multiple targets against Iran-linked Houthi group in Yemen. The UK government on Saturday termed this third wave of strikes as proportionate and targeted. Its defense ministry released the footage and said precision-guided bombs were used to strike multiple targets near the Sana'a airfield. The strikes hit buried weapons storage facilities, missile systems, launchers and other capabilities the Houthis have used to attack Red Sea shipping. While the US Central Command, that is CENTCOM, also released photos showing a missile launch and flight operations for the strikes. The Pentagon said it targeted 13 locations across the country. The US and Britain conducted the strikes against 36 targets in total. In the second day of the major US operations against Iran-linked groups following a deadly attack on American troops last weekend. The UN Security Council, I beg your pardon, is going to hold an emergency meeting on Monday regarding the US strikes in Iraq and Syria. The meeting has been requested by Russia after accusing the US of intentionally aggravating the situation in West Asia. Meanwhile, the United States has issued a warning of more potential airstrikes after carrying out an offensive against a total of 85 targets in Iraq and Syria over the course of the last few days. This comes in response to a drone strike from an Iran-backed militia that killed 3 American service members. DD India's Nick Harper has the latest from Washington, D.C.
We've seen considerable anger from the Middle East in response to these US airstrikes, Iraq and Syria, that were struck by the United States, but also Iran, who has backed the militia in those two countries, all saying that the US has violated the sovereignty of both Syria and Iraq, and also saying that the US is threatening to create a wider conflict in the Middle East. Iraq and Syria also saying that civilians have been killed in these airstrikes. Now, the US says that they struck targets that they intended to, and they were also telegraphing for several days that these strikes were likely to take place. It seems in the hope of minimising casualties. Reports that many of the militia in those command centres that were hit had evacuated ahead of the strikes. But there's still that fear now as to whether the US airstrikes will create a deterrence or become a point of escalation in this conflict in the Middle East. Now, Joe Biden has said that he isn't seeking a wider war, but he's also said that these strikes that took place on Friday night US time were just the beginning, that there would be more strikes potentially in the coming days against other militia or other command centres within the region. Biden saying that it will continue at the time and place of the US choosing. So the US is trying to deter future attacks, but there is still that overriding fear that what the United States has done may prompt further escalatory action from any of those 3 countries in the region. Although I think it is worth noting that the United States chose not to target Iran itself. There were no attacks on Iranian soil, and we have not seen from Iran, despite the condemnation, any threats to retaliate as a result of these US strikes. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And also in the region, the Israeli army released a video on Saturday showing explosions on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The IDF said its fighter jets struck 2 Hezbollah observation posts and a military command center. In a briefing on Saturday, Chief Military Spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said Israeli forces have attacked 34,000 Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including 120 border surveillance outposts, 40 caches of missiles and other weaponry, and more than 40 command centers. Hagari said Israel had deployed 3 army divisions along its side of the Lebanese border in anticipation of Hezbollah's involvement in the conflict between Hamas and Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel to West Asia again next week. This will be Blinken's 5th trip to the West Asian region since the conflict between Israel and Hamas began on the 7th of October last year. The top U.S. diplomat will travel to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Israel and the West Bank. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller in a statement said the Secretary will continue diplomatic efforts to reach an agreement that secures the release of all remaining hostages and includes a humanitarian pause that will allow for sustained, increased delivery of humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza. U.S. President Joe Biden had a decisive victory in the South Carolina primary, the first official nomination contest of the U.S. presidential election calendar as far as the Democrats are concerned. While Biden faced little opposition, the vote was being closely watched amid concerns about his popularity, especially with black voters. Biden defeated the other long-shot Democrats on South Carolina's ballot, including U.S. Representative Dean Phillips and author Marianne Williamson. Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris made a joint stop at the 2024 campaign headquarters on Saturday to rally staff and supporters ahead of a challenging re-election bid.
Well, it didn't take them too long to finish counting the votes here at Charleston County Board of Elections because the turnout was fairly low, but still an emphatic victory for President Biden in the state that he credits with propelling him to the White House in 2020. And in a statement on Saturday night, once again, he vowed that South Carolina would take him back to the White House once again. But this Republican-leaning state is unlikely to be a general election battleground come November. Even so, the Biden campaign has treated South Carolina's primary as an important contest. It spent money here on staff and advertising, essentially using the state to test messages aimed at black voters who typically make up around 2/3 of South Carolina's Democratic primary electorate. So, after months of polling that showed a growing percentage of black voters souring on Mr. Biden and his message, the primary was the first opportunity for them to deliver a verdict on the president. And though turnout was low, Democrats have been celebrating early data that showed a 13% increase in the share of black voters compared with 2020. So South Carolina may not be up for grabs for Joe Biden come November, but how well he can energize black voters here could forecast how well he'll do in other parts of the country. And as he prepares for what looks like it will be another rematch with former President Donald Trump, every vote will count. Kate Fisher in Charleston, South Carolina, reporting for DD India.
And an update now related to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Moscow has claimed that Ukrainian shelling on the eastern occupied city of Lysychansk has killed at least 28 people. 10 people were rescued from under the rubble. Russian forces said Kyiv had targeted a bakery that is popular on weekends. The attack came as Kyiv said Russia hit it with a fresh barrage of Iranian-made drones which targeted energy facilities in the central Dnipropetrovsk region, leaving thousands without power. The Election Commission of Pakistan has disqualified Shah Mahmood Qureshi of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party from contesting in elections for 5 years. This decision has come after the former Foreign Minister of Pakistan was sentenced to jail for revealing state secrets. Bangladesh has approved the import of 34,000 tons of potatoes from India. The decision comes as a solution to rein in soaring prices of potatoes in Bangladesh ahead of the holy month of Ramadan. A total of 25 tons of potatoes were imported from India through Dinajpur's Heliland port on Saturday. The price of potatoes has now come down to 25 to 30 takas per kg at retail markets, which had earlier been priced at 40 to 45 takas. Sri Lanka is celebrating its 76th National Independence Day today. The main celebrations are being held at the Golf Face Green in Colombo amid tight security. The official ceremony commenced with the arrival of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The PM of Thailand, Shreta Thavisin, is the chief guest of the Independence Day celebrations, which is being held under the theme, Let's Build a New Country. This year's Independence Day celebrations featured a multitude of spectacular events with a march by members of the tri-forces, police, civil defense force and cadets celebrating the Lankan Independence Day. Forest fires raging in central Chile have claimed over 50 lives so far. A state of emergency has also been declared in the South American nation, with the country's president saying that the death toll is likely to rise even further. More in this report.
Amidst global challenge of climate change, the world is grappling with its repercussions. Wildfires and floods wreak havoc, prompting relentless efforts to combat these natural disasters. South American country Chile is currently facing weather crisis with devastating wildfires sweeping through the central Valparaiso region that burned approximately 480 hectares of land.
The fire in the Melosilla sector where we are right now has affected close to 480 hectares. It was caused by the weather conditions, the temperature, extreme heat.
The Melosilla has been severely affected, a tragedy attributed to soaring temperatures and exacerbated by strong winds. More than 50 people have been killed and concerned loom over the possibility of an escalation.
We need help. Food for our pets, supplies, clothes. I don't know. My house, I lost everything. Everything.
Drone footage unveiled the aftermath with a stark landscape of charred homes, underscoring the gravity of the situation, marking Chile's deadliest forest fire outbreak in the last decade.
From one moment to the next, the fire reached the botanical park. In 10 minutes, the fire was already on us. There was smoke, the sky turned black, everything was dark. The wind felt like a hurricane. It was like being in hell.
The entire nation is plagued by 92 that have been impacted over 43,000 hectares, with the region of Valparaiso alone witnessing 7,000 burnt hectares. The situation demands unwavering vigilance and ongoing support as the Chile navigates this critical juncture. Rishabh Sarma's report for DD India.
Russian cosmonaut Oleg Koronenko set a world record on Sunday for total time spent in space by logging more than 878 days in orbit. According to Russian Space Corporation Roscosmos, Koronenko broke the record at 8:30 a.m. GMT. He is expected to reach a total of 1,000 days in space on the 5th of June, and by late September, he would have clocked 1,110 days. And now let's get you a sporting update as well, where India were all out for 225 in their second innings, setting England a victory target of 399 runs on day 3 of the second test at Visakhapatnam. Shubman Gill top scored for India with 104, while Akshar Patel contributed 45. Gill capitalized on the reprieves to register his first Test 100 in 13 innings and help India consolidate its position. Tom Hartley and Rehan Ahmed shone with the ball for England, who are now 1-0 ahead in the 5-match series. Hartley took 4 wickets with 77 runs and Ahmed grabbed 3 wickets for 88 runs. The visitors were 67 for the loss of 1 wicket at stumps. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as they break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.